Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of our conference on the 3 principles of addiction and recovery, um, exploring a new paradigm for transformation. Yesterday was just magical. It was inspiring. It was heartwarming. It was tear-jerking. There was a lot of adjectives to describe how this has all come together in such a organic, beautiful way. There was a lot of planning, but in the end, it just all kind of flowed into a natural order. And that's what transformation is like, really. You know, as you heard in the stories yesterday, my God, you know, just all the things that Sarah and Miguel and Bart and Jeff and, you know, all the people, Brian, who shared their stories. Each story was so unique. It was so them. There are no 2 stories of transformation that are alike. They're all tailor-made for each of us. And that's what I love about this. But as a psychologist, in order to help people understand how this works, like a scientist, we have to observe and discover what is already divinely designed. You know, how the perfect design works. And in physics and chemistry and in all the sciences, scientists, out of curiosity, wanted to know, how does it really work? How does the Earth go around the sun? How do the planets not run into each other? How do plants grow? They aren't really creating anything. They're discovering what's already there. And so in this talk this morning and today, we're really going to focus on what is the kind of the science or the principles, the process of transformation. How does it work? How does the magic, the divine perfection of this actually come together and work? And so Jacqueline and Beverly, I hope Beverly shows up. She may have overslept. She's in a different time zone. We're going to share about the transformation process. And then after our talk, where we kind of put some bones on it, the meat will be the next presentation, which will be more stories of transformation and how transformation, the health realization or the 3 principles psychology, how it's like a horticulture. It helps nurture and understand how to nurture plants so they grow better. And so we're going to talk about how this process works with AA and 12 other kinds of support groups, and how what's ever worked in any of these self-help programs, what are the principles behind it? What are the constants here? So I thought I'd start, and I'm going to do my screen share now. God, I hope I can do it. So I've got to shrink my screen here and then do a screen share. So you tell me if you can see this. You see that now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
There we go.
Yes, we have ignition, Houston. So I remember when I was a little kid in grade school, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic grade school, one of the most of it was really boring and really rigid and strict, but one year we I think it was in the 5th grade, we all had to find a caterpillar. And then we all had to put it in a glass jar, you know, Skippy peanut butter jar, and cut holes in the lid and put a little stick in there and some leaves, and so that the caterpillar had something to eat. And we had to all bring it into school. And so and in my class, there were 50 kids. It was the baby boomers. And so we had all these rows of caterpillars in jars. And over the course of the next days and weeks, we saw that caterpillar begin to not only just eat all of the leaves, but then started to form a climb up the limb and started to create a cocoon. And oh, we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait. And then one of the kids, little Jimmy, he couldn't wait. He opened up his jar and tried to pull it apart because he wanted to see that butterfly. And of course, he killed the poor butterfly in the process because he got impatient. But those of us who waited, we got to see this natural process of the metamorphosis of a butterfly. And I think I got more out of that than anything else I learned in grade school in the 8 years I went there. But that is a common thing. Can you all hear me and see what I'm pointing to? Good. So I'm going to read you a story. And I originally heard the scientific description from Jamie Smart in one of his books or something, so I'll give him credit. But I've kind of adapted it. And I just want to read this before Jacqueline and hopefully Beverly will show up and we'll find her. This is a caterpillar's story of transformation. So just sit back and listen. Once a caterpillar sheds its skin to reveal the chrysalis that will offer protection during the process of metamorphosis, something extraordinary happens. The caterpillar starts to disintegrate. The digestive juices that used to break down its food now dissolve most of the caterpillar's body, resulting in a kind of caterpillar soup. This creative broth contains a small number of surviving body parts, as well as a huge number of what's called imaginal cells that have been contained within the body of the caterpillar since it was born. The imaginal cells join up to create the tissues and structures of the adult butterfly. The change from caterpillar to butterfly is not an incremental process. The caterpillar doesn't sprout wings. Rather, as the imaginal cells form together around a pre-existing pattern, the butterfly emerges from the caterpillar's soup. The metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly can be a compelling metaphor for personal and collective transformation. The blueprint of the butterfly already exists within the body of the caterpillar, contained in the imaginal cells. Similarly, the pattern of your transformation is already there within you, contained within the formless energy of who you really are. The caterpillar doesn't work at becoming the butterfly. It transforms in harmony with its pre-existing nature. Similarly, you don't have to struggle or work at transformation. Aligning you to who you really are in harmony with your pre-existing nature. The change from caterpillar to butterfly is metamorphosis, a genuine transformation at its most fundamental level. Similarly, aligning with your most inspired and inspiring life is a genuine transformation, a profound reordering of your experience of life and how you relate to it. So I'm gonna stop the share now. Beautiful picture, isn't it? So I've been on this journey my whole life, I guess. But something changed when I met Sydney Banks. Because up until that point, my life, it was just kind of accidental. I'd bump into things and I would evolve a bit or change. And it was a very slow, painful, struggling process. But when I heard Sid and really heard Sid and listened to Sid and what he was pointing to, that we were already complete, that we were already whole, that we had everything within us, that full potential of our butterfly within was already there, that we simply had to get out of the way for it to emerge. And the principles, mind, thought, and consciousness that Sandy and Barbara and Christian talked about yesterday afternoon is the understanding of how our human experience is manifested, is created in the moment. Understanding those principles, even a little bit, even if you've just gotten a glimpse of what we're pointing to here in this conference. When I first heard Sid, I only heard a tiny little bit. It was something about thought. I don't know. But when I went back to my normal life, it started to unfold naturally. I was a very anxious, stressed person. My addiction was to fear. That was my primary addiction: anxiety, fear, and worry. And I was in the middle of a thought storm of fear shortly after returning from Miami after I first heard Sid, driving to work frantically, late again. I'm always late. Trying to get through traffic and cursing at the drivers next to me. And all of a sudden, I had that out-of-body awareness, that up periscope, where I could see that I was making it all up in my head with the power of thought. And I go, oh my God, I haven't even gotten to work, and I've already imagined how bad the day is going to go, and that I'm late, and I don't even know if I'm going to be late. I'm just imagining I'm late, and I'm sweating, and all of this. And at that moment, it was like I saw it, and it was like the bubble burst, and it disappeared. My anxiety just completely fell away in this natural feeling of peace and well-being and seeing the order of things. It was funny to me. I started laughing. I thought, my God, I've spent so much money on psychotherapy. I've gone to so many workshops and counseling sessions and journaling and you name it. And all I had to do was see that it was thought in the moment that was creating my stress that led to burnout. And about 10 minutes later, it all came back. And then I saw it again. And for the last 40 years, that's been my life. I've just been seeing that, waking up to the act of my creation of my experience again and again and again. And every time I do, I transform a little bit more. A little more of my imaginal selves come to the foreground, and more of who I already am shows up. Like I was just telling Jacqueline as we were talking before the thing, it's so amazing now when I write or when I have to give a talk, I wake up and I just lay there in bed, and it's almost like being in the Matrix or something. I just get a download of the whole talk. It's just like, wow, where does this come from? It's like I don't have to, there's no work here. It's now just listening, not just for talks or writing, but for living. The answer lies within. The information is delivered through insight, and that's how transformation works. So we're going to each tell our stories a bit here. And I'm going to turn to Mama J, as she loves to be called now, Jacqueline Hollows. And she's going to share with you what she has to say about her transformation or her thoughts on this.
Oh, thank you, Joe. That was beautiful. Unlike Joe, I don't get a download. So I always start going, oh my God, what am I going to say? So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I never thought I'd had a transformational moment. I realise now, from where I am now, that when I look back, there's lots of moments in our lives that are those little tiny glimpses, but I didn't know what they were. So I come from a background, my career-wise, in IT and information technology and customer services. And I worked really hard all my life. I believed that I had to white knuckle through life. I'd had a childhood of trauma, various trauma, and so on. I've been around addiction most of my life, and And I thought from a very young age that the only person who could make it through life was me, and I had to just keep trying. And I did. I tried really hard, and I did okay. So it looked like it was working. But all the time when I was doing okay, when I was getting degrees or getting good jobs, I was also having to soothe myself, self-medicate in various ways. And I never thought that life was meant to be anything else but a struggle. So it never occurred to me that that was wrong. It just seemed like that's how it is. Life's a struggle and then you die is something that I used to say. And in 2009, I was doing a big job, sort of, I don't know, 80 miles away from where I lived. So I was traveling a lot, doing this job. My father, who I'd been estranged from, came back into my life, and he was dying of cancer. So I sort of incorporated meeting with him during my commutes, and you know, I had this really high flying lifestyle that was crumbling around my ears. 2009 was around the time of the credit crisis, so I crumbled as the credit crumbled. And I'll tell you this brief story of my father, who I as I said, I was estranged from, and I didn't get on with, and but he was dying, and it came to the final weekend of him dying, and I saw that the girlfriends that were looking after him weren't making him go into hospital, and he was on his last breath, really. So I sort of took over and put this man in hospital that was meant to be my father, and then I had to sign a do not resuscitate, and all of these things. And it was a really weird weekend, you know, and I just suddenly had to, the internal project manager took over, and I had to sort out all these things for this person that I actually felt like I didn't know. And in the last few years of his life, he'd stopped drinking, he'd stopped fighting, and he'd found a number of spiritual practices. And one of them was Taoism. And he'd got this book by his bedside. So I picked up the book, and when I packed his hospital bag, and on the night that I signed the DNR, I sat with him and said, you know, you've got to go, like, you're hanging on. He was in a coma. I said, you're hanging on and you're fighting this, but you've got to go. I'm going to read to you until you go. And I picked up this book, which happened to be Dr. Wayne Dyer, The Tao Te Ching. And I read passages from that book, which were all about letting go. And I'd never read it before, but it was by his bedside, so I thought he might like it. And he was just on this bed that was, you know, moving to sort of keep him comfortable, but just breathing, really. And I sat with him for the night, and during the night, my son texted me and said, you know, kick one of the patients out of the bed and, you know, get asleep. And I was holding my dad's hand just to be comforting to him. And I told him about this text, and he laughed. And I looked at him, I said, you're a bugger, you can hear me, can't you? And he was just there, you know, just breathing. And I texted my son and said, Peter just laughed. And he said, well, he won't laugh when he finds out it's him that you're going to kick out of bed. So I told him again, and he laughed again. And I said, right, I know you can hear me now. You've just proved it to me, you can hear me. So I'm definitely I'm reading to you until you've gone. And I looked at him, this old man, in bed, and I suddenly felt this wave of compassion. And I said to him, I'm sorry. And I don't know what I was sorry about, but I just said, I'm sorry. And he lifted my hand and put it to his heart. Anyway, I carried on reading, and the next morning, all these people came that, you know, like his wives and girlfriends and various people came, and they were all in the room, and the Macmillan nurse came, and during the moment, just before that, during the moments of quiet before all this sort of circus happened, I went into the little bathroom that was there, and I'd been in that hospital for 72 hours. So I hadn't washed, or, you know, had no makeup left on my face, and my hair was greasy, and I was, you know, sort of tired, I guess. And I went into this little bathroom, and I was, you know, washing up and freshening myself up, and I looked in the mirror. And the whole of my life, my dad used to say, you know, you're ugly and you're stupid, and clip me around the head. And for the whole of my life, I believed that I was ugly and stupid. And at this point, I've got 2 degrees, you know, I've done amazing jobs and all of these things, but I still believed I was ugly and stupid. Anyway, I looked into this bathroom mirror, and there was the most beautiful person looking at me. And I just stared into her eyes and just stayed there for a few minutes thinking, who is this? And didn't really understand what had happened. Washed up, you know, got out, and then, you know, my father died during that day, and so on and so forth. Now it's 2009. I didn't come across the principles until 2012. So I didn't know what that was. I just put it down to, you know, like a hallucination or something from lack of sleep. And what I realized now was that was my butterfly showing up. I saw in that moment, I believe now that I saw in that moment my true essence. I'd been stripped away of everything. I'd felt this incredible forgiveness with my father for everything. And I saw my true essence, but I didn't know what it was. So my life looked like it carried on as it had, you know. I still drank, I still ran around like a crazy thing. I still felt insecure. I was still jealous, you know. I still had all of these insecure things. But it's only when I recently told this story to somebody who's actually at this conference that I realized that maybe it started before, but that was the real start of this metamorphosis of something that was already there within me, that was already alive within me, that I'd covered up with my insecure thinking and my beliefs about myself. And now when I look back, I can see that life actually did I started to follow that a little bit more. So life started to lead me towards what I'm doing now. I was cleaning out my dad's house, you know, like after he died and things, and I'd only been in there ever to visit, and I was cleaning it all up, and I was sitting in his little office, and there was a church outside the window, and I was looking at the church and going through his papers, and I found this newsletter, and I thought, wow, that looks like an interesting thing that he was involved in. And it was Michael Neill's newsletter, and I ended up and Michael Neal is this person who at the time wasn't teaching the principles, but has ended up teaching the principles. And I ended up signing up for a course. So I really see that my father gave me a gift. He sort of handed over this spiritual journey that he'd been on just before, you know, a few years before he died. He'd handed it over to me, if you like, and I was carrying the baton. And it unleashed something within me without me knowing it. Fast forward a few years, and I was left all that job and stuff. I'd sort of started again, and started from scrap, started from nothing. You know, I ended up with nothing, and I started from there. And I was volunteering for somebody who was in recovery, and I was making a film with him. I was interviewing people for his film on a recovery walk, and I walked into this park where I was interviewing people, and again I'd come across the principles at that point, but I didn't feel like they'd done anything for me. I thought they were interesting, but that was about it. In fact, I didn't really like them actually when I first heard about them. And I walked into this park, and there were all these people in recovery and not in recovery, and had been in prison, and all sorts of people in that park sat around on the grass and just doing their thing. And I looked at them, and I was filled with love, literally overflowing with love. And I thought, I have to work with these people. I love them. Like, who are they? I love them. And I followed that, and I ended up working with people in recovery, and then ended up starting a business, working in prison, and so on. And I still didn't know what any of that was. All I knew was there was a feeling of love. I'd experienced it once or twice, or maybe more times in my life. I never really knew what it was, but that when I followed whatever came from that, it seemed to be, I don't want to say easier, because it's not easy, but it seemed to be effortless. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done, but it seemed to be flowing. It seemed to be flowing. And that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now, and working with people in prison and people out of prison, and sharing whatever it is that I know about the three principles. Shall I pause there, Joe?
Sure, you can if you want. Does that feel like a good place to you to stop?
I don't know if I'm talking too much.
No, you're not. No, it's beautiful. Just keep going. If you have more to say, keep going.
So the bit that I wanted to add to that was that it looks like to me now that something got unveiled to me that I followed, but it didn't get unveiled to me as a, here's your purpose, you know, here's the thing that you need to do. Oh, it was just a feeling of love that I often ignored during my life. So if I'd have followed that feeling of love previously, I probably would have been doing something else previously, and probably would have had a bit of an easier life. But it was only in that moment, for whatever reason, maybe the caterpillar was ready then, but it was in that moment that everything came together for me. It made more sense to follow that than it did to follow my insecure thinking, which I was used to following, and my clinging on, my white knuckling. Post that time, without me really, literally without any effort at all, I accidentally gave up drinking. I just stopped drinking, and it was only a few weeks later that I thought, I've stopped drinking. I met my husband, Rob, and fell in love, and we got married. But there was a destruction period. And that's what I heard in Joe's story about the caterpillar, is that the caterpillar didn't get built from what was already existing. What was already existing fell away, and then the caterpillar emerged out of that. And I feel like we go through that every day. That every day we build, or I build what I think life should look like, what business should look like, what my relationship should look like, what my talk should look like. You know, I build this illusion, and then on a regular basis, you know, mine kicks my ass, and I fall back out of it and go, oh, no, I'm not in control. Oh yeah, there's something bigger than me at play here. And there's a like a dance between that and that. And sometimes I forget to dance, and I just go rushing off into my own little made up world of, and then life gets a bit harder and a bit harder and a bit harder, and I go, what am I doing? And then I remember again, and I fall back into it, and I go, oh yeah, I'm not in control here. And it's that sort of, that dance, and I'm okay with being in the dance. And my life isn't, still isn't like, people think that because I smile a lot and I look, you know, like I'm having an easy time or something. My life definitely has ups and downs. and I have ups and downs. But I remember more often, and I wake up more often, and I catch myself more often. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just not feeling it today, or I'm insecure today, or I'm angry today, or I'm peed off today, or whatever it is. And then I feel a level of forgiveness and compassion for myself that I probably never gave myself much of before. And that alone is a little balm and a little soothing. And then eventually I wake up again and I pop back out of it again. What's been absolutely the biggest amazing blessing of all of this is meeting those people. Meeting those people in recovery took me from community into prison. And it's been the happiest, best, most wondrous 5 years of my life. Working in the prison system is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. The challenges and all sorts, which I'll talk about in another talk. But the people, the souls that I found in there that recognized that I wasn't being a professional coming in to tell them what they needed to do. They recognized that soul, that grace within me, and it was a mirror to them, and it woke them up to who they are. And I think that I go in and I'm like that bathroom mirror was to me in my dad's hospital room. I go in and I'm that mirror to them. And little by little they wake up and they start seeing who they are. And the teaching part is just this is what that is. Just the helping them see and make sense of what that is. But the essence part is beyond any of us, and it's already there. It's already built into the design. We just don't know it.
That was absolutely perfect. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mama J, Jacqueline, for sharing that. And if you listen to Jacqueline, um, and I don't want to take anything away from what you said because it was just perfect the way it is, but everybody's journey is completely unique. So often we come to a therapist or a treatment center, we're looking for a technique, or we're looking for how do we do this? And how we do this is written within your own heart, uniquely designed for you in your path, in your life, in your circumstances, in your time, in your perfect timing. And like Jacqueline, how she listened to that when she felt love. You know, everything with her dad and the whole story, it's just like you could just see this beautiful tapestry, at the time look really messy, was actually perfection viewed from too close. You didn't see the bigger picture of it. And that's what all of our lives are, is this unfoldment, this perfectly designed, divine design within each of us, that when we listen within and we trust that hunch, and it's messy. My life is still really messy too, just like Jacqueline. I have lots of ups and downs. And now when it happens, instead of like, oh God, I've written so many books about this. How if they could see me now, they would never listen to me again. And instead of that, it's like, oh boy, what am I going to learn next? It's like, at least part of me, even if part of me is like, the other part of me is going, now what am I going to get to discover a little deeper? So the journey is ongoing transformation, ongoing evolution. There's no end to it. It's infinite. So now we're going to hear from Miss Beverly, one of my best buddies in the whole world, who has just done, she's just an amazing, miraculous person. I say no more. I introduce you to Miss Beverly Hayes.
Morning, everyone. I really apologize for getting here late. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning, and I really thought I was going to have a conversation with Joe early. So I was just sitting there. I had was untangling some chains. I was just sitting in the middle of my bed, fully dressed, unraveling my chains. And then I got up and looked at the phone, and it says, Beverly, your time is now. And I said, oh my God, I thought I had 45 more minutes. So I apologize for that.
No problem.
Where do I start? I guess I'll start at the beginning. In 1975, children, and one was a brand new baby. She was 3 months old. And I was sitting in the living room, and I heard a car pull up in my driveway. And I looked out, and it was my husband. We were married, but had been separated for many years. And so I was there, and he walked in. My current boyfriend was there too. So my husband walked in, and he says, well, I just came by to tell you that your DD brother just died. And I was like, what? You know, he just kind of broadsided me, because my brother was my world. He was the only person in the world that I even confided in, because I was a very shy and quiet person. Read a lot of books, and, you know, always kind of lived in this place outside of everybody else's realm. I always saw beauty in everything. I always found unusual things. Even as a little child, I was a peculiar person. But being the oldest girl of 9 children, and my brother died,
Beverly, we can't hear you, Beverly.
Uh-oh.
Talk into your mic. There you go.
What am I gonna do?
Just talk into your mic.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, and we could hear most of what you said. Just at the end, you trailed off.
Okay. Well, anyway, if you can't hear me, just let me know, okay? Anyway, I got mad at whatever powers be. I just got mad. I got this rage filled that my brother would die. I took it very personal, and I struck out at God or whoever was up there, you know. And I decided at that time in my life that I was going to do everything or anything that I was big enough and bad enough to do, because I always thought I was a pretty good girl, you know. So right away, I started drinking, I started drugging, and my that I started with was heroin. And for the next 12 years, the first 4 or 5 was fun. I had a lot of fun because, you know, I'm creative and people like me, and, you know, I started selling stuff and people was looking for me all over town. Just find that tall black girl with the diamond in her front tooth, and you know, you can get everything you want. So it was a business. You know, I really thought it was fun, but it was a double-headed coin. On the other side of that fun and driving Cadillacs and furs and all that stuff, on the other side of that coin was deprivation, and it was not being able to care for my children. By now I have 5. So for the next 12 years, I went on like this downhill spiral. And I share that because, you know, the way I think about that same event has happened again, but the way I responded to it because of the grief was totally different. And so I end up in a dope house one day, and I heard that my other brother was planning on committing suicide, and that's how my first brother died. And that really jarred me, even under the influence of, I was on methadone for 12 years, those 12 years, because I had a solution, and I was so smart. I said, well, if I get on heroin, I'll just get on methadone and convince them that I've been on it, and I'll have the solution, you know, if I run into any problems. That's how I thought. So at the end, I ended up going into a treatment center where I got really reintroduced to myself. I will forever be grateful for the 12-step programs. And in 1987, there was only Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had to say that I was an alcoholic into the alcoholic treatment center. And at that time, you really had to do that, accept you if you was just an addict, especially a heroin addict. It seemed to be the worst thing that anybody could do, I felt. So I went into treatment. No one trusts you. No one, you have no credibility. And my children were in foster care. And so I went in there though with a determination, something in my heart that was so hurt by the years that I had just experienced. And of course, dealing with the death of my brother, I had to finally face that, you know, and I realized later that my inability to accept that current reality caused me years of hell and pain. But I got into the program and I woke up my first or second day in treatment, and I was just so happy. I was just filled with this joy that was just oozing out of my fingers, out of my feet. I was dancing early in the morning. Oh my God, they started testing me when I went. Don't touch nothing. Don't pick nothing up. You go straight with me to the bathroom. They started testing me every day just because I was happy. But nobody knew what I had let go of, you know, the life that I came from. They just didn't understand. And so that was really, really funny. So I left there and I went down the street to a 4-month program. I was in a 28-day program the first time, 4-month program down the street. Same thing. Everybody had me, they called me Fast Black, and everybody thought I was a super con artist, and they couldn't trust me. And, you know, that's just the reputation that I had. But within about 3 months, people started seeing me different. And I ended up being the resident uh, counselor. And I started helping people in treatment, but I had gave myself a job. My job was, because I felt so scared and alone when I got there, I made myself the official greeter. So I would salutate anybody that was new. I'd give them a tour of the program, which was not very big, but it had a lot of land. So I show them how the ants worked hard every day. And I had this little book I would read to them, and the book was Happiness is Everywhere. And people finally, got used to me. To make the long story short, I came back and because I got the 1-year chip, all the powers that be over the San Joaquin County drug programs, they wanted to talk to me. And they told me that, why was I the only person, African-American female, that had ever came back for a year chip? And how could they make that better? What could they have done or had in place that would have aided that process? So for months, they picked my brains, and they was developing this program, and everything I could think of, and I told them, like, instead of parenting being separate while your kids are in foster care, it would have been really nice if while I was learning that, I had my kids to actually experience the things that I was learning at time. So, to say the least, I ended up helping create a $1 million program. They hired me as a drug counselor, never credited me for anything that I contributed. And I didn't even know what that was. I saw it, but I didn't know what it was. And I knew I wasn't going to get hung up there, because I had so much joy helping the women who were pregnant. They put me with the women who were pregnant that were using alcohol and drugs. And I told them my story. And of course, that program was 98% successful. So I stayed with them a little while, but there was so many politics in the county business that I just couldn't do it. I didn't know what to call it. I know what it is now, but I didn't know what to call it. I just knew that I didn't want to do it. So I ended up going to a training, got selected to go to this training because visitors came to my town, and 4 of them came to my little grassroots class that I had in Sierra Vista by my house, near the housing project. So people it was a very popular group. I didn't think anything of it, except for I was sharing and giving back what I had received. And they sent 4 of those international visitors. One of them had a life-changing experience. They were from South Africa. So when they said South Africa, I was really naive. I thought all Africans were Black. So when these 3 white Africans and 1 Black African showed up, I was really kind of like, what? But anyway, one of the ladies had a life-changing experience. And when they all went back to the town hall meeting, the Black African lady stood up at that meeting and told them, why is this woman sitting out here teaching this little bitty class? We should have her somewhere where she can affect world change. And so from that, I ended up call from Bob Graham. And Bob Graham sent me to a 6-day training at Dr. Roger Mills. Are you waving at me, Joe? You can't hear me?
You're still
sorry.
cutting in and out a little bit, Beverly. So if you hold your mic up on
I
the
don't know where
string.
the mic is. And I have a better one, but I can't put it on here.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll try to hook it up.
When you lean forward, Beverly,
Uh-huh.
that's when it cuts out. So if you sit back and then it stays regular.
You might want to also check and make sure it's just secure, the mic in the port. It sometimes causes it to cut in and out.
All right. I don't even know where I was. But anyway, to make the long story short, I met Roger. I'm gonna get this one right here, but I have to put it on my cell phone. And I know time is a ticking, but that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess. That solved that problem.
You're doing beautiful, Beverly.
Yeah,
Do technical stuff, no problem.
yeah, it's gonna all work out. And I hope that I just pray for conciseness that we will be able to get together on this. All right. So I'm going to have to do it like this. Be better. Technical difficulties. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so where was I?
You met Roger.
Yeah, I met Roger, and I met the girls from Modelo. And when I walked in that room, it was so exciting. Right away, I knew I was in a room filled with people just like me. Is my audio coming across all right? Oh, okay. So I won't worry about that no more. So anyway, my trip to the 6-day conference turned out to be one of the topics of the conference that day, because I went down there with a guy named Manziel who worked with drugs with guys that were gang related. So we couldn't find the Holiday Inn Express. And we was looking for it, we knew we was close to it, but we couldn't find it. So I looked up and I saw some people swinging on swings up in this park that was on this hill. So it was my car, but Manziel was driving. So I said, Manziel, I'm just tired of looking for this place. Let's go up here so I can swing on these swings. So let's just take a break. So we went up there and got on the swings, and I got on the swings and I swung like I was a 9-year-old kid. I was kicking my legs and turning the chain around and letting myself fly out. And Manziel was looking at me like, this has to be the craziest lady I ever met in my life. But all of a sudden, when I got through laughing and kicking and swinging, I looked down and there it was, the Holiday Inn Express. And we could see from where we are the direct road to get there. So he goes in the conference telling everybody about the experience that illustrated exactly what we were coming to learn more about. And I tell you that my life has never been the same since. I was looking for a way to help people that fell through the cracks in the AA program. I felt so much compassion for people that relapsed who had so much going on for them, you know, and when they experienced the relapse, it was almost like they were nothing, you know, in the program. And that for some reason just hurt me inside my heart. And so I started just speaking I always knew there was an energy, because I would always know stuff that I shouldn't have known. So I started requesting, put a big question mark up in the sky, and I said, how do we help the people who relapse and then they think they're nothing, even though they got an AA degree in that time from college, you know, they got their kids back. This one guy had a home better than any woman I've ever seen just because he had a 4-year-old daughter. How do I help these people? And that's what was in my heart. And also the other thing that I wanted to learn, I was always getting in sick relationships. And I wanted to know what I was doing that was causing this. I knew that it had something to do with me. but I didn't know what it was. So I followed Roger around for a year because I was recovering from back surgery, and I got all the questions answered that I had been looking for. You know, I respected the rules of AA because there's rules when you have to follow if you want to be successful. But at the same time, if anybody asked me after a speaker meeting, how was I doing this, or how did I get to thinking like that, I'd take a napkin or a piece of paper and I'd show them how our thoughts create our feelings, create our actions that get us certain results in life, and then how that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I was hooked. I was hooked from the very beginning, because not only did it help me to identify that my picker was broken relationships, it helped me understand what I needed to do to get some better results in my life. And so that went on to where I got hired in Oakland to work at this place called Lockwood Coliseum Gardens, which was a crime-ridden community that the governor, the mayor, wanted to see. She had heard about what happened in Modelo. She wanted to see if that could be implemented in these two neighboring housing projects. Well, it was a challenge because the people didn't. And our job every day was to connect with people. You know, even if they slammed the door in our face, our job was to connect with people and build rapport. So out of that came a meeting that we had once a week, and it attracted the local housing authority police. He took the class, Jerry, and then Jerry ended up he ended up bringing all his staff there. And the residents and Jerry had a very broken relationship, but during those classes, they began to see the separate reality of everybody's role in life and how we all function psychologically. And once they understood that the person behind the glass in the welfare office, the judge in court when they go up for their grandchildren or children, and that the police officer all functioned the same way that we did, their feelings and their reality, it kind of lowered the playing field. And a lot of things happen that people call miracles. And at the end of a 2.5-year interaction with the residents, they called it a miracle on 66th Avenue, and it got a 12-page spread in the Oakland Express. So that got the attention of, actually, Barry went to Washington, D.C. to meet the president. Janet Reno came to see it. We started getting visitors from all over the world. And it was so amazing that you couldn't even believe that it was true, even though you were in it. And so we identified a lot of residents that became trainer of trainers. And at the same time, I was executive director of two women's halfway houses in Stockton. And I took we called it Health Realization at that time. I took that to the halfway houses, and the women started learning Health Realization, and they started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And not only were they getting stronger and stronger, I was getting stronger and stronger, because there was a lot of things that I just didn't know that I could do. But once I learned the principles, I said, well, let me play around with this and see what happens. Let me play around with this and see what happens. And pretty soon I'm on 2 boards for universities, one in Minnesota and one in West Virginia. Pretty soon I'm going to college, going back, finishing my credits for my master's degree. Pretty soon, you know, I'm just flying all over the country, working in Hawaii, and oh my God, everywhere. It was just, people was calling me from everywhere. And at one time I had, I had 3 jobs and I had 2 colleges for one semester. And I'm telling you, it was, every day wasn't easy, but it was so exciting. I just didn't know what was going to happen, because it was so true, that if we can bypass those things we were told as children, and if we can put ourselves in a place of neutrality to receive information, and if we can understand that once we get some information, the knowledge is not enough. We also have to gain levels of understanding, and then we have to have application. So most people, they get knowledge, and that's how I had been. As soon as I hear something, I go share it. But I did not understand that that the thing that makes the rubber meet the road was the understanding, which is directly connected to mind and the intellect of the universe, unlimited power that opens all kinds of possibilities. Then I started wanting to embrace that more, because I understood what the need was. And that's why I think at the end of, say, 3 years or 2 years, everybody in my town was starting to get sober. Little kids was coming up to me, rubbing my legs because they were shiny, asking me, can I help their mothers? Grandmothers was seeking me. It was so scary. And at the same time, I was suffering from survivor's guilt. I didn't know what survivor's guilt was. At survivor's guilt, I had 7 brothers and sisters who were still out there on drugs, crazy. We thought we was the coolest people when we was in it, but we was so crazy. So that everybody was whispering to me, how did you get out? How did you get out? And I was like scared of them. I carried my big book in my purse, or Each Day a New Beginning, and I'd start reading to them on it because I was catching the bus to get where I was going. I completely humbled myself to my current situation. I know I'm going back and forth. I hope you can keep up with me to understand what was happening. And so eventually, after about 5 years or 3.5, 4 years, I didn't like, I was trying to point people to something, because this is a story that you really cannot tell. You're speaking to something and pointing to something, you're holding it up for somebody to see, because the knob to the door, for the door to open, is on the inside. It's a completely inside out model. And I got disillusioned because people was acting like I was the reason that all these things was happening. I'm like, no, wait a minute. Because if you start following me, I'm fallible just like you. You catch me on a day I still was rude. I still didn't know how to tell people things in a nice way, but all those things came with time. All those things came with time. And then I was able to move to Oakland, where I didn't know anybody, and continued my life down there doing the work that we're doing here now. And I also want to say that I know sometimes it may sound like, while we're talking about the principles, like they're a cure-all, and people might get that idea that we're saying, I'm gonna tell you what we're not saying. We're not saying that if you learn these principles, you're gonna live in such a high functioning life that you can pick up a drink again and then be okay, because that is not what we're saying. We're saying that I'm saying that if you're in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, they have rules for a reason. And if you follow those rules and you follow the dictates of the program, your life will get better. And then when you run into the 3 principles, they'll work together like this to aid you in whatever you want to do in your life. But most people are so happy with being in this new space and in this new love, because you just go around the world falling in love with people. They don't even think about drinking or want to drink, even after you've been in it for years and years and years and years. But we're not saying that to have a relapse or anything like that is bad. It's not. You know, we pick ourselves up and we go on. But I want to make it clear. I heard somebody say something yesterday that left a real, aching feeling in my heart. You know, we need to be clear about this. You are the expert about your life. But my suggestion is, if you're in AA, follow the rules of AA as you learn to mesh the principles, the 3 principles in your life. And your quality of life will improve so drastically that you will sometimes look in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? How did I get here? You know, because it's so wonderful. And then you help people without even saying a word. People will just come up to you, who are you? I mean, what do you mean, who am I? There's something about you that's different, you know, and that's a wonderful thing. So thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Beverly, that was so, oh man. I didn't want to stop you. You take the rest of the day here, but we'll move on. I think we're over time here in terms of the break a little bit, but could we go on just a little bit longer to kind of wrap things up? Would that be all right? Okay. God, I don't even know what to say at this point, Beverly. You've taken the wind out of my sails, the breath away from me. I'm still basking in your wisdom and your story. Oh my God, it's just so powerful. And I love what you said, that you don't look to me. You know, I think so many people want to make it about when they see someone transform. They want it so bad, but they want to be like Beverly, or they want to be like Jacqueline, or they want to be like Sid Banks or whatever. But there's only one of you, and when you discover that, when you listen to that, you're just another beautiful star in the universe. But you're a different one. There's only one of you. And so this, I'm going to just quickly put this up on the screen here for people. Can tell me if you can see that now. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So Beverly and Mama J talked about their journey and their downward spiral. You know, how kind of things fell apart. This is the story we hear in AA all the time. We've been talking about this Jellinek curve here forever in the 12-step programs. But this turning point isn't hitting bottom. We often think of it as hitting bottom. It's waking up. And when we begin to wake up to who we really are, we get out of trying to control the addiction. And we begin to discover through insight who we really are. Who is Joe Bailey? Who is Jacqueline Hollows? Who is Beverly Wilson Hayes? You know, who are we? And when we uncover that, it's only been covered up with a lot of thinking. It's a process though, and that's what this upward spiral is about. Our whole life, every experience we have, when we hit the wall and we feel like we're lost again and we've lost everything we thought we had, it's an opportunity for deeper insight, for deeper realization of our true essence. So we're not telling you to relapse in order to find that out, but we're all always relapsing, in a sense, through life happens, as they say, shit happens. And when it does, it challenges us. We run into things all the time and lose our bearings, and we go back into our old habits of thought. But what the principles do for us, And this is the combination that Beverly talked about with AA and other support groups. When you understand the principles, you have that same emotional reaction. You have the same thought system you ever had, but you have a perspective on it that you realize it's coming from my thinking in the moment. It's not coming from what I'm thinking about. I'm not broken. I'm whole. I'm complete. I'm just going through a cleansing. I'm cleansing the misinformation. I'm cleansing the misunderstanding from my mind. Purification of the mind. Purifying the mind so that we, through that awareness, we gain more insight. And every time we do, we shift again. And that what looked like a setback turns into momentum to take us to a higher level of consciousness, a deeper understanding of the inside out, what Beverly was pointing to there, and Jacqueline, that it comes from the inside out. We're making it up. We're creating it. We are divine creators. And every time that happens, we get a deeper realization. So I just wanted to put a little frame around these two powerful women who just spoke, that this is something that can be passed on to others. This is something that, and this is what the treatment center, I remember my sister-in-law, she lives in Hawaii, and next to her house was a butterfly farm. And these two women raised butterflies for weddings. And it was all screened in, and they would there's like little trees in there and stuff, but they were protected. These caterpillars were protected from the birds and the snakes and everything that would eat them. And they would form, and there was thousands of butterflies in there and thousands of cocoons, and they were constantly producing. So treatment center of the future, and now at Gulf Breeze and Farnham and some of the other treatment centers you're going to hear about today, they become like that little butterfly farm that's protected from the elements and allows this natural process of metamorphosis to occur through an education, as Carl Jung said to Bill W., an education of the mind beyond the confines of pure rationalism, not intellectually understanding, insightfully understanding the power of our mind. And this is the marriage between, and that's what we're going to talk about in our next panel. How does this understanding bring together all of the ways that human beings, through churches, through religions, through meditation centers, through all of the ways that people have sought out the truth, how do the principles bring all of that together and show how it's all working? These are the constant principles behind how transformation works. So we're going to take a little break, and we'll, Mama J and Beverly and I will stick around on the break after we take a little potty break if we need it. And we'll address your questions and then come back. What time do we come back, Peter?
At 1/2 hour.
Okay, so in about 10 minutes. So why don't we take, we're going to at 1/2 hour, so we don't have much time for questions. Oh, well, we'll fold it into the next session. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 10:30 Minnesota time, and then we'll start our panel with, who's doing the panel next? I can't remember.
Barbara and Christian, I think.
Oh, Christian and Barbara, yeah. So they'll be doing the panel on people sharing about how this complements and enhances support groups. So we'll see you in a few minutes.